Hello everyone, how are you doing? We're back for another episode of Studio Talks, and in the studio today we have a special guest, Anthony Bonnette.
Very special.
Yeah, that's right. Well man, listen, I'm really excited for you to be here. I want to have folks kind of get to know you a little bit. We've been working together on some stuff, and so I've gotten to know you and have become familiar with your songs and your songwriting. So I'm really happy for other folks to get to know that as well. But let's sort of back up a little bit, go back to the beginning, and maybe talk about what is your musical journey like. Have you just been playing since you were a kid, or like when did you get turned on to music? What was the sort of the journey of songwriting for you? Let's just hear a little bit about how you got into all this.
Well, thanks for that kind introduction. I started playing music when I was a kid. I kind of grew up around it. My mom is a piano player,
okay.
and she grew up in the church. Her father was a pastor, and they met. My mom and dad met in that church.
Yeah.
So she played the music, and she has older siblings. She has 4 older siblings.
Yeah.
And as they would come of age, they would play the piano in church for her dad's church. So.
Yeah.
So that they're a very musical family, even
Right.
though her mother and father were not musicians.
Okay.
So they grew up doing that, and my dad is a singer. So
Okay.
as they met, they had that music in common.
Yeah.
And
Are they? Is it Captain and Tennille? Is that who your parents are?
Tennille? Who's that?
No, I'm sorry. That's an old '70s group, and they were a married couple. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, my mother is Tanya, and her last name's Davis now because they're no longer married. But my dad's Tony Bonnette, and they met, and they kind of grew up together. They were teenagers when they met.
Yeah.
And so they grew up together, and
Yeah.
they were. My mom was a teenager and dad too when I was born, so I kind of
Yeah.
grew up with them.
Yeah.
So
Right.
and they were always worship leaders in church, so I grew up on that, and it
Yeah.
wasn't. At the beginning, it wasn't so much of contemporary kind of music. It was
Right.
older music,
Yeah.
hymnal kind of music.
Sure.
Which
The best kind.
which kind of impacted my musical life.
Sure.
We didn't really listen to secular music like country or even top 40 music when I was a kid. We listened to Christian music.
Right.
So there's just the hymnal music,
Gospel
and then
singers.
and then when I got a little older, a young teenager, there was contemporary Christian, which
Yeah.
by that time was like DC Talk.
Oh wow.
Like,
yeah. That's a whole thing. That's a whole
and I
market.
remember listening to it on the radio, and there was this whole there was Christian rap at that time. So there's this whole thing. So I've got a pretty broad musical
Yeah.
ear.
But at some point you got into country music. So what
I did.
So what was that process like? What was that story?
Well, even though we didn't listen to country music, like I say, the hymnal music is basically country.
Yeah, that's right.
Country music.
Sure.
Hank Williams has a couple songs in the hymnal. So
George Jones has some gospel songs that'll make you cry.
exactly. So I mean that's country music. The culture is super similar between those two. It just kind of depends on whether you're in the club or out of the club.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's
whether
right.
you've committed to the church or whether you haven't.
Right.
So the musically they're super similar, and so that kind of.
So you already had that foundation. So at a certain point, it bridged over for you to just straight country.
It did, and well, I don't know about that. My dad, my grandpa, and them, they all listened to kind of country, and
Yeah.
but in our household there was no country.
Yeah.
But then as I came into adulthood, as I was maybe 17 or 18, I kind of started listening to music for myself, and it happened later for me than most.
Yeah.
But it was country. It was it was CMT. They kind of got me into watching some country music videos, and before I know it, like I'm listening to country all the time.
Yeah, right.
And so for 3 or 4 years there, I kind of learned country music.
Yeah.
And it sounded like the music of my
Yeah,
people.
it wasn't like it was some crazy, evolution
No.
of interest in style of music. I mean,
No.
yeah, like you said, country music is definitely rooted and grounded in
It
gospel
definitely is.
music. There's really no question about
For sure,
that.
and especially, I listened to that CMT kind of '90s country there, but then once I found Hank Williams Sr., George Jones, his old stuff, that music spoke to me like that was the music of my people. That's where the hymnal music, that's the same stuff.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and I think that that whole sort of country music and gospel music being genetically related, so to speak. I think that's the reason why you can have a mainstream country artist put out a gospel album or something, you know, and nobody questions it. Everybody's just like, yeah, sure. I mean, it just makes sense.
It does.
Because they're definitely genetically related.
And you even have Amy Grant who made a pop album after coming out as kind of a Christian.
Yeah.
Of course, that didn't go over. I mean, it went great.
It went over real good to her bank account.
It did. I know you're gonna cut this, but it didn't. It didn't go over so well in the Christian circles.
No, she got a lot of flack for it.
She got flack in my circles, and
But you know what? If she'd made a country album, I bet no one would have said a word.
No, maybe not. Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, we loved her Christian album, and we were, I didn't even know it. Like, it was like she'd backslid.
Oh yeah. She, bless her heart. Let's pray for her. So tell me a little bit about how. So that's sort of your interest in music, as far as like what you connected with and liked and so forth. How did the songwriting thing happen for you? Like, when did the songwriting bug bite you?
Well, I guess I was singing. So mom and dad were songwriters. So I was when I was younger, I sang at my kindergarten graduation. So there was always me singing, and they would lead songs. But in whatever church we were in, part of the thing was for me to come and sing a special, which it seemed like a big deal to me then. But
man, I remember. Like, you don't get this a lot now, but it was a part of the service. Yeah. The sermon, the offering, special music,
special song,
and it was usually real special.
And I'm sure it was for me too.
Probably.
But so I sang, and obviously my voice was higher. So, and I have 3 younger brothers. So usually I would sing a special, and then we would sing a special as a family, mom, dad, and me and my brothers, whichever of the brothers were. So there were got to be more and more singers. So I sang. You'd sing your part, and my part got pushed up and up and up. But then at some point my voice dropped and I was singing the bass.
A little something called puberty kicked in.
Yeah, it was a good day because it made room for one of the other brothers to come in and get a part. Yeah.
So basically you went from singing with your family in church, somehow that sort of led you into songwriting. So what did that look like?
Yeah, so I was singing, and I had always been a singer. So, and loved the sound of my own voice.
As all singers do.
So anyway, my mom, like I say, is a piano player. So I was playing some piano, and I had always also been we didn't grow up with TV, or even when we had a TV, we didn't have access to it. We had access to books. So I was a reader and a writer. Yeah. So I'd always written kind of prose and tried to write poetry and stuff. So it was just kind of a natural confluence of
music and poetry.
So and one day it just kind of happened. Yeah. And I wrote this song called. I was working with my dad's a bricklayer, and all my family.
How old were you by this time?
I was 18. I think, 17 or 18.
Okay.
Working with them, and this and it was raining, and I thought, every time it rains, and so I wrote a song called "Every Time It Rains."
Yeah.
And it was a neat little, and it was like a magic thing had happened,
some door had unlocked.
Yeah, for me, and not just something just came together inside. So it's such a natural thing, and it's something I was just naturally not great at, but just something I like to do.
Well, I mean, I know we've worked on several songs together, and I know at least one of the songs that we've worked on is a really old song that you had written at least in your 20s. So it probably, wasn't too long before you were doing stuff that was good. I mean, certainly the stuff that we did I thought was really good. So, I mean, you were a quick study.
There's some of those that I still really like. There are very few that I play for anybody. Yeah. But some of them have held up, and I'm sure it'll be that way 20 years from now, looking back at the stuff I'm writing now. So,
from talking to you in the past, if I have my timeline right, correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of transitioned from doing a lot of songwriting into really focusing on being an instrumentalist and spending some time becoming a guitar player, proficient in guitar and banjo and some things like that. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that, and then sort of how you got back into being really prolific again with your songwriting.
Well, I started my musical vision kind of opened up, and I started listening to blues and bluegrass and things like that, and old time kind of music, older country, and so that led me to buy these other instruments just because the sound of them is so transfixing. Some of these older, a mandolin and a dobro and a banjo, they have a sound that they make that's so strange to it's intoxicating. Just the basic things they do. So
and obviously too, because those instruments are used in old styles of music, but also too, every one of those instruments you just mentioned, you can still hear in country music now.
Yeah, you still can.
Yeah,
and they're still prominent in a lot, like
absolutely,
and especially in Texas country and things like that.
Sure.
Like, the only thing I don't have is a steel guitar, but I'd still. I mean, that's a little. You use your feet too. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, you got to be like some kind of crazy mad scientist to play steel guitar.
Yeah. So that's so I spent 10 years and didn't write any songs. I had ideas, so I had a few. When I'm by myself in the car or by myself for any length of time, a lot of times I'll write a chorus or it'll just kind of happen. Like I'll come up with a line and it'll just progress from there, and I'll have a chorus or a verse or something like that. So I had 10 of those that happened for probably a 10-year period.
But you weren't sort of actively writing songs.
I didn't write any, and I wasn't in the for a long time before that. I was playing singer-songwriter nights, and and I'm just trying to progress as an artist, as a singer-songwriter instead of as a musician.
Right, but then at some point during that time, you'd really refocused on being an instrumentalist, being a musician.
Right, exactly.
So tell me about how you sort of songwriting sort of unlocked for you phase 2, so to speak, because obviously now. I can only assume, because here we are in the studio working on all this great music. You're writing songs again because you have this whole pile of these great songs. So tell me how sort of the evolution sort of brought you back to that.
Well, it's the same kind of thing as that happened the first time. It's so I spent that 10 years and was really not thinking about writing songs and just trying to focus on playing and making the sounds that those instruments make, and being a part of those kinds of music.
Yeah, right.
That's a lot of there's a lot of fun in that, and also learning those super old time bluegrass songs, old country songs.
You spend a lifetime learning the standards.
Exactly. So they kind of, and what I found with that old music is it kind of changes you, and that's probably true of all music.
Yeah.
Where it kind of gets and it kind of lays tracks in you and changes the course of your musical journey.
Yeah, right.
Not to go too far with the metaphor, but it does change you.
Yeah, right.
And just all of a sudden, I guess it was last November of 21 or October, my brother had said something and that you need to write a song about us, about Upshur County. Yeah. About the place where we're all from.
I know this song.
Yeah, you did.
We've recorded this song. It's out now.
Yeah. So, and I didn't, when he said it, my first thought was, I don't really write songs now.
Yeah.
So, but that kind of stuck with me a little bit. And before I know it, it was like happening in my sub program.
Right.
It just kind of happened. And then I had a chorus and I had a verse. And one day at work, I intentionally did it because I'm by myself a lot,
right?
And so being by myself for a whole day, I just kind of worked it through and wrote verses, and so I had the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then after I did that, it was like the floodgates had opened.
Yeah.
And so now I've written 15 in the past year. So
yeah.
Which is not it's not a lot, but.
No, but that is a lot of songs, and I have heard a lot of these songs because, like I said, we're working on stuff right now, and there's some real bangers in there. So that sort of leads us to this idea that we've done 2 songs. One has been released, right?
Okay.
And there's another one that is to be released that is already completed.
Right.
And we're working on some other. I guess y'all are working on. I don't know if we've decided if it's going to be an EP or an album, but we're in the midst of working on that right now. Some pretty exciting stuff. So people can go and check out the one that's out right now, and where else can they find you if they want to sort of dig into everything Anthony Bonnette?
Well, they can find me at YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. It's Anthony Bonnette or Bonnette Son. If you search for either one of those, we'll come up. We're on Facebook and
you've got
Instagram.
A podcast too, right?
I've got a podcast. We released it. We're on Spotify, obviously. So so we're a lot of places.
That's good. Well, everybody should go check that out. Now, I understand that you're going to sort of treat us with a live in the studio song.
Nobody told me about this.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot then, man. I don't know what to say. Do you have one picked out for us?
Well, I don't know. What should I do?
What would you like to do?
I really don't know. I haven't thought about it.
Well, guys, it's going to be a surprise, and it's coming up next.
Sorry. Navy turned my daddy loose in 1945. He rode straight home to East Texas on a train. Stepped off that Texas Eagle on a cold December night. Walked 27 miles north in the rain to see my mother and the son who bore his name. Took a job in a steel mill, making 80 cents an hour. 80 hours a week in that cursed furnace room. Just like the Hebrew children, he was walking in the fire. He was burned and scarred, but he was not consumed. Burned and scarred, but he was not consumed. They burned Oklahoma coal, melted ore from Dangerfield, turned that rusty pig iron into steel. That fire that scarred many a man and many a man it killed. Burned my daddy's heart, hard as Lone Star steel. Well, my mother, she had loved the man that came home from the war with a passion that she thought could not be quelled. Day by day, a colder man came back home to her. When the fire burned out, well, there was nothing left. She took me, we left Daddy by himself. Burning Oklahoma coal, melting ore from Dangerfield, turning rusty pig iron into steel. That fire that scarred many a man and many a man it killed, turned my mother's heart hard as Lone Star steel. Well, my daddy, he died young, breathing smoke and spitting fire. Mama died with whiskey on her breath. They finally quenched them furnace fires 11 years ago. Made their money, moved on to something else. Took their money, they moved off to somewhere else. From burning Oklahoma coal, melting ore from Dangerfield, turning rusty pig iron into steel. That fire that scarred many a man and many a man it killed, turned to many a heart hard as Lone Star steel, and burned my little heart as hard as Lone Star steel.